He never saw it coming. One moment, Jannero Pargo was standing tall in the courtroom, clutching the edge of the wooden bench with trembling hands. And the next, his body gave out. The room fell silent. Gasps echoed through the chamber as his tall frame collapsed to the floor, his head narrowly missing the leg of the judge's bench. Papers scattered. A gavel dropped. Even the bailiff froze in disbelief. Paramedics were called immediately, rushing in with stretchers as whispers rippled across the rows of stunned faces. And through it all, Malaysia sat stone-faced. She didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't even reach for him. Her stillness was louder than any scream. Lawyers leaned into each other, whispering furiously. The judge looked away, his eyes heavy with a sadness he could not express. Members of the public gallery clutched their mouths, some recording, others weeping. It was a moment that didn't just stay inside those four walls. Within minutes, footage had leaked. The collapse was trending. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, every platform was ablaze with one headline: Jannero Pargo collapses after DNA test shocker. But what the cameras didn't capture was the weight behind that fall. This wasn't just exhaustion. It wasn't just the pressure of fame or the spotlight of reality TV. This was the collapse of a man whose entire world had just been ripped apart by one simple sheet of paper: a DNA test. And as his body hit the ground, so did the last piece of the life he thought he knew. Witnesses later described the moment as suffocating. One woman who sat just a few rows behind Malaysia whispered, "I couldn't breathe." "You could feel the air leave the room," another man muttered. "I'll never forget the sound when he hit the floor. It wasn't just a thud. It was heartbreak." Cameras caught Malaysia's eyes darting toward the gallery, not toward her ex-husband. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. To many watching, it looked like a woman who already knew this day was coming, and that only made the betrayal sting deeper. Because in that courtroom, the truth wasn't whispered anymore. It wasn't a rumor or a blog headline or some late-night speculation on Instagram Live. It was fact-cold, clinical, undeniable. The DNA results had just confirmed that the child Jannero raised as his own was never his at all. And in that single moment, with the courtroom echoing in gasps and phones buzzing with notifications, a legacy shattered. He wasn't just a former NBA star. He wasn't just the man who gave Malaysia a glamorous life on Basketball Wives LA. He was now the man who had been deceived, publicly humiliated, destroyed. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was historical. It was reality TV canon, and everyone knew this story would not end in silence, because this was bigger than a failed marriage. This was bigger than a broken home. This was a scandal that blended betrayal, family secrets, and courtroom devastation into one of the most shocking collapses celebrity culture had ever seen. And as the cameras flashed, as the hashtags rose, and as paramedics lifted Jannero's trembling body onto a stretcher, one truth became undeniable. This was only the beginning. Because the world was about to hear a story of deception so deep, and a betrayal so devastating that it would forever change the way we looked at Malaysia Pargo. A story written not in gossip, but in DNA. Before the courtroom collapse, before the DNA shock, before the betrayal unraveled, there was a love story. At least, that's how the world saw it. Jannero Pargo and Malaysia weren't just husband and wife. They were a brand, a fantasy, a fairy tale packaged for reality TV. When Malaysia first appeared on Basketball Wives LA, cameras captured her as the glamorous wife of an NBA star. She was polished, poised, and untouchable. By her side stood Jannero, a professional athlete with a calm smile and quiet confidence. Together, they looked unstoppable. Fans called them the it couple. Red carpets became their stage, luxury vacations their backdrop. Every Instagram post was a window into what seemed like perfection, matching outfits, family portraits, and captions that painted a picture of everlasting love. They weren't just living life, they were selling the dream. For years, social media worshipped them. Hashtags celebrated their unity. Blogs referred to them as relationship goals. Even critics admitted, whatever else is happening on this show, at least Malaysia has stability at home. But behind that carefully curated image, something else was brewing, because for every smiling selfie, there were whispers of tension. For every family vacation, there were late-night arguments hidden behind mansion walls. Jannero gave the world his loyalty. He provided the cars, the diamonds, the gated lifestyle. But in interviews, there were cracks in his voice. In one forgotten clip, when asked about trust in marriage, Jannero paused for too long. He finally answered, "Trust is the most expensive thing in the world. Once you lose it, you can't buy it back." The interviewer laughed it off. But fans now replay that moment like a prophecy. And Malaysia? She had her own way of dodging the truth. On multiple red carpets, she was asked about her marriage, about how she balanced fame, motherhood, and being a wife. Her responses were always polished, always perfect. But if you looked closely, you could see her eyes shift. You could hear the catch in her voice. One reporter recalled, "It was like she was answering without answering. She had this smile that said everything and nothing at once. To the public, they were flawless. To insiders, they were fragile." Friends close to the couple later revealed that Jannero often questioned loyalty. He wanted reassurance. He needed honesty, and Malaysia, for reasons only she truly knew, gave him silence instead. Still, the fairy tale marched on. They showed up for premieres. They sat front row at games. They posed for glossy magazine spreads, holding hands like they had nothing to hide. But if you listen closely to the past, the warning signs were already there. The storybook wasn't built on unbreakable trust. It was built on carefully staged images, and secrets buried deep beneath them. And those secrets would soon crawl out in the most devastating way possible, because the world was about to discover that the fairy tale Jannero and Malaysia sold us was nothing more than smoke and mirrors, and the first crack in their perfect image would lead directly to betrayal that no amount of diamonds could cover. The fairy tale had cracks long before the courtroom. Collapse. And those cracks didn't start with lawyers or DNA tests, they started with whispers. At first, it was nothing more than background noise. Anonymous accounts sliding into DMs, late-night blogs posting grainy photos, comments under Malaysia's glamorous Instagram pictures that hinted at something darker. One tabloid headline read, "Basketball wife or basketball heartbreaker." Another screamed, "Is Jannero too loyal for his own good?" At the time, fans brushed it off as gossip. Every celebrity couple gets attacked. Every reality TV star becomes tabloid bait. But deep down, Jannero noticed. He noticed the messages piling up, the side comments, the questions people wouldn't ask directly, but whispered when they thought he wasn't listening. And then came the recordings. A blurred-out voicemail clip surfaced on a gossip blog. The voice was hushed, distorted, but it sounded familiar. It sounded like Malaysia. In the alleged call, she told a friend, "There are things Jannero doesn't know, and he doesn't need to." The clip spread like wildfire. Was it real? Was it fabricated? Nobody could say for certain. But the damage was done. Blogs ran with the headline, "Malaysia hiding a secret from Jannero." Podcasts debated it for hours. Influencers stitched it on TikTok. Memes went viral. And for the first time, fans began asking the question Jannero feared most. What if the loyalty was one-sided? Someone close to the couple later revealed, he didn't want to believe it. He wanted to see his wife as flawless. But the doubt, it was eating him alive. Still, he stayed quiet. Still, he smiled for the cameras. But in the silence of their home, behind those gated walls, Jannero reportedly started asking harder questions. Where had she been? Why was her phone face down? Why did her stories never quite add up? And every time Malaysia deflected, she had excuses. She had polished answers. She had the kind of charm that could shut down suspicion with a single smile. But rumors don't die. They grow. And soon, they grew louder. A viral blog claimed that Malaysia had been seen with someone else, someone outside the marriage. No clear photos, just a blurred figure in the corner of a restaurant booth. But the speculation was enough. Fans flooded the comments. Is that who we think it is? She's been hiding something. Then the whispers shifted from cheating to something far more devastating, because hidden within those rumors was a new kind of speculation. About the children, it started with a single line in a gossip column. Sources say Jannero may not be the biological father. The internet exploded. On Reddit threads, fans dissected old photos. That child doesn't look like him. The resemblance isn't there. TikTok users put side-by-side images of Jannero and Malaysia's kids, drawing red circles and arrows like detectives exposing a conspiracy. One viral comment read, "We've been watching this family for years. What if it was all a lie?" And suddenly, and though Malaysia never addressed the rumors directly, her silence became its own answer. The louder the world asked, the quieter she became. But silence couldn't stop the avalanche, because those whispers, the anonymous DMs, the blurred recordings, The viral speculation would eventually force their way out of the shadows and into a courtroom. And when that happened, no smile, no polished interview, no carefully staged Instagram post could hide the truth anymore. The fairy tale was collapsing, and the man at the center of it all was about to demand proof. In the form of a DNA test. The rumors were no longer whispers. They were screams echoing through every corner of Jannero's life, and he couldn't escape them. At practice, teammates asked subtle questions he couldn't answer. At family gatherings, relatives looked at the children too closely. Even when he walked down the street, strangers muttered under their breath, "Is it true?" The speculation was becoming unbearable. Behind closed doors, Jannero's family urged him to act. A cousin allegedly told him straight to his face, "You can't keep living like this. You need to know the truth." At first, he resisted. He didn't want to humiliate Malaysia. He didn't want to believe the woman he loved was capable of such a betrayal. But then came the breaking point. According to someone close to the couple, Jannero confronted Malaysia one night in their home. His voice cracked as he asked, "Tell me, are they mine?" She froze. Her eyes darted away. She whispered something he couldn't quite hear. And then, silence. That silence was louder than any confession. It was the answer he had dreaded, but she couldn't say aloud. He slammed his hand against the counter. His voice rose, trembling with rage and heartbreak. "I've given you everything. Why can't you just tell me the truth?" Malaysia allegedly broke down in tears, but still refused to give a direct answer. She said things like, "You don't understand." And "Not everything needs to be said out loud." To Jannero, those were not answers. They were daggers. The shouting match escalated until neighbors reportedly heard the noise. One described it as the kind of fight that makes your stomach drop, because you know a family is falling apart on the other side of that wall. The next day, Jannero made the call. He contacted his lawyer, and the paperwork for a court-ordered DNA test was filed. From that moment forward, everything changed. The once perfect couple now found themselves split by lawyers, documents, and legal motions. For Jannero, it wasn't just about the rumors anymore. It was about proof. It was about reclaiming his sanity. But for Malaysia, insiders say, it was about survival. One source close to her whispered, she knew the walls were closing in. She just didn't expect him to actually go through with it. Court documents were sealed, but leaks trickled out almost instantly. Blogs ran stories of an NBA veteran demanding a DNA test against his ex-wife. Fans were divided. Some defended Malaysia, saying no woman should be forced into such humiliation. Others sided with Jannero, praising him for finally standing up for himself. The media circus had begun, and when the day of the first hearing came, the tension was unbearable. Malaysia arrived in a sleek black outfit, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses. Jannero walked in separately, his jaw clenched, his body language stiff. The press swarmed. Cameras clicked. Questions flew, but neither of them said a word. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was heavy. Lawyers shuffled their papers. The judge looked stern. Jannero sat forward, hands folded, while Malaysia sat back, arms crossed. Then came the moment. The judge ordered the DNA test. No more whispers. No more denials. No more speculation. Science would decide the truth. When the gavel hit, a chill swept through the room, because everyone knew, once those results came back, there would be no going back, and what they revealed would be devastating. The air inside the courtroom felt suffocating. Even after Jannero's collapse, the proceedings pressed on, dragging every secret into the light. The judge's voice trembled with the weight of what was about to be revealed. All parties will remain silent until the official DNA report is read into record. Every eye locked on Malaysia. Her usually unshakable composure was cracking, her lips quivering as she tried to hold her head high. Jannero, now revived and seated with trembling hands, refused to look at her. He stared instead at the folder clutched by the court clerk, the one that carried the truth that would change his life forever. Whispers filled the gallery. Reporters scribbled furiously, influencers live-streamed with shaky phones, and family members leaned forward in their seats. The tension felt alive, crawling across the walls like static. The clerk's monotone voice cut through the chaos. "The probability of paternity," the 2%, gasps erupted. It was as though the entire room exhaled in horror at once. Jannero's lawyer immediately placed a hand on his shoulder, but it was too late. Tears welled in his eyes, spilling over as he finally broke his silence. 17 years? 17 years, and you let me believe? Malaysia's face drained of all color. she whispered, barely audible. It wasn't supposed to come out like this. Her words hung in the air, vague yet damning. The judge slammed the gavel for order, but the energy inside was uncontrollable. Paparazzi outside the courthouse could already hear the noise from within. And then, as if the script of their lives was written for maximum humiliation, a leaked recording surfaced online that very moment. Court attendees held their phones high, gasping as notifications lit up their screens. The clip, allegedly recorded months earlier, featured Malaysia's voice, trembling but undeniable. I never thought he'd ask for a DNA test. If he finds out, everything falls apart. The courtroom turned into a stage of betrayal. Some gasped, others laughed in disbelief. But Jannero sat frozen, hands clenched, staring at the floor like a man watching his soul shatter. Malaysia, realizing the walls were closing in, lashed out. You think I wanted this? You think I planned to raise a child in lies? I was protecting us, but protecting our family. But her words only deepened the wound. The gallery booed, reporters whispered unforgivable, and even her closest supporters shook their heads. Jannero rose slowly, every step deliberate, his voice heavy with devastation. You didn't protect us. You destroyed me. Silence. The judge finally recessed the hearing, ordering both parties to clear the room, but the damage was already irreversible. By the time they exited, the hashtag #DNA deception was trending across every platform. Clips of Jannero wiping his tears were looped endlessly. Screenshots of Malaysia's whispered confessions filled gossip blogs. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram were ablaze with memes, outrage, and theories. Outside the courthouse, the scene was absolute chaos. Fans screamed in sympathy for Jannero, while critics hurled insults at Malaysia. Some held signs reading "Justice for Jannero." Others live-reacted with captions like, "The betrayal of the decade." One blogger even tweeted, "This isn't just a scandal. This is emotional homicide." Back inside, behind closed doors, Jannero reportedly collapsed into his lawyer's arms, sobbing, "I gave my life to a lie." Meanwhile, sources claim Malaysia begged for a private conversation, but he refused, saying coldly, "You had years to be honest. Now the world will decide who you are." The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. It was global, viral, permanent. The fallout wasn't just about DNA. It was about shattered trust, public humiliation, and a legacy destroyed in real time. And yet, little did anyone know, another twist was waiting just beyond this devastating reveal. Because buried in the whispers of family insiders was an even darker secret, one that would turn this scandal into something far bigger than a failed marriage. The courthouse steps became a battlefield. Camera flashes blinded Jannero as he emerged, head bowed, shielded by his legal team. Fans reached out, some crying, others shouting his name as if to remind him he wasn't alone. But the look on his face said everything. He wasn't just a man leaving court. He was a man stripped of his identity as a father, his dignity exposed before the world. Malaysia followed minutes later, flanked by her publicist and 2 security guards. The crowd's reaction was brutal. Booing, shouting, and even chants of "Liar! Liar!" filled the air. Reporters screamed questions. Did you lie for 17 years? Was this about money? Who's the real father? She didn't answer. Her sunglasses covered her swollen eyes, but her trembling hands gave away the truth. She was unraveling. Within hours, the scandal became the top story across every major entertainment outlet. The Shade Room, TMZ, and Hollywood Unlocked all ran headlines that shook social media. DNA bombshell Jannero, not the father after 17 years. Malaysia's lies exposed in court. Jannero Pargo collapses over shocking revelation. Clips of the collapse racked up millions of views on TikTok within hours. One video of Jannero falling to his knees, set to slow piano music, had over 4 million likes before sunset. Memes spread like wildfire. Side-by-side pictures of Jannero crying next to Maury Povich with captions like, "He isn't the father." Others showed Malaysia under the word deception. The internet was ruthless, but beneath the jokes, there was a darker, more emotional wave of reaction. Fans poured out their support for Jannero. Tweets like, "He raised that child as his own for almost 2 decades. He deserved the truth." And "This is why men break." This is psychological warfare. Some even shared personal stories of betrayal, using the hashtag #DNA deception to connect with his pain. The scandal wasn't just entertainment anymore, It was a movement. Meanwhile, Malaysia's side of the story was collapsing. Her team rushed to draft a statement, but every word they tried to craft only made her look more guilty. When a leaked draft hit the blogs, it showed her admitting to protecting her family's image, a phrase that instantly went viral. The public read it as, "She lied to protect herself." And the most haunting part? Insiders claimed the child at the center of this DNA bombshell had no idea. According to a family friend, the teen discovered the truth online, not from his mother. Screenshots allegedly showed him liking posts with captions like, "Trust no one." The fallout split the family apart. Relatives who once defended Malaysia now distanced themselves, while others begged the public to stop attacking the child. But it was too late. The story had grown bigger than them. Even celebrities weighed in. Reality stars posted cryptic quotes about betrayal. Athletes voiced support for Jannero, one tweeting, "Imagine giving 17 years of your soul, only to find out it was a lie." The story was no longer local gossip. It was national conversation. But the most shocking fallout came from within Malaysia's own circle. According to insiders, a close friend was ready to speak, someone who allegedly knew the real father's identity. This anonymous source promised to reveal everything in a tell-all interview. The internet exploded with theories. Was it someone from Jannero's NBA circle? A long-forgotten ex? Or someone still dangerously close to home? Every guess fueled the fire, every whisper adding gasoline to an inferno that was already out of control. The scandal wasn't dying. It was escalating, and in the middle of it all, Jannero disappeared from the public eye. His last words outside the courthouse replayed endlessly across social media. "I was living a lie." Now, the world waited in silence, hungry for the next revelation. Because if the DNA test tore apart everything they thought they knew, what was coming next threatened to burn the entire foundation of their lives to ashes. The whispers began as nothing more than gossip. Anonymous blogs hinted at names. Comment sections turned into crime scenes, with fans piecing together timelines like detectives on a case. But soon, the rumors found a target. And the name that surfaced left the entire industry reeling. According to one explosive leak, the real father wasn't some faceless stranger. It was someone dangerously close. A man who had been in Jannero and Malaysia's orbit for years. Insiders pointed fingers at a former teammate, a man who shared locker rooms, team dinners, and even vacations with Jannero. Someone Jannero once called a brother. The thought alone made fans sick. If true, it meant the betrayal wasn't just between husband and wife, it was within the sacred brotherhood of basketball. One anonymous source whispered to a blog, "People would be shocked. The child looks just like him when you really pay attention." Suddenly, old photos resurfaced. Side-by-side comparisons flooded Twitter and TikTok. Fans zoomed in on jawlines, eyes, even smiles. Just when everyone thought the nightmare had reached its peak, the courtroom erupted once again. Whispers turned into gasps as the judge confirmed a stunning revelation hidden in sealed testimony. There wasn't just one betrayal. There were two. The documents revealed that Malaysia hadn't simply lied about the paternity. She had also been receiving financial support from Jannero for years, fully aware of the truth. According to the paperwork, Malaysia had knowingly allowed him to pay for private schools, vacations, and even a college trust fund, while concealing that the child wasn't his. It wasn't just emotional devastation. It was financial manipulation on a massive scale. The courtroom fell into chaos. Jannero's attorney stood up, slamming the table with the words, "This was fraud, emotional fraud, financial fraud, and a betrayal of the highest order." Jannero sat frozen, his face pale, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. It was as if every dollar he'd spent, every sacrifice he'd made, had been thrown back at him like a cruel joke. The gallery watched in stunned silence. Some whispered prayers, others simply shook their heads in disbelief. Even the bailiffs looked shaken, as if they were no longer just keeping order, but witnessing history. Malaysia tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "I did it to protect my family," she whispered, her words barely audible over the murmurs. But her explanation fell flat. In that room, no one saw protection. They saw deception, and then came the second, sharper twist. Buried in the testimony was mention of another man, a second possible father. This wasn't just one betrayal. It was a web of secrets, with more than one name entangled in the story. The judge refused to read the name aloud, but the implication was clear. Malaysia's silence had been protecting not just herself, but potentially multiple men who could have been exposed. The courtroom buzzed with speculation. Journalists scribbled furiously. whispering to each other as if they had just uncovered the scandal of the decade. The words echoed again and again. Another man, another betrayal. For Jannero, it was the breaking point. He rose from his chair trembling, his voice cracking as he shouted, "Was there ever a moment that was real?" The question hung in the air like a dagger. Even Malaysia couldn't answer. Her tears fell silently, but the silence itself was louder than any denial. By now, the public outside had already caught wind of the second twist. Breaking news banners lit up across TV screens and phones. New revelations in Pargo DNA scandal, second betrayal exposed. The hashtags exploded again. Second betrayal trended within an hour. Podcasts streamed live, dissecting every word from the courthouse leaks. Some fans said they could forgive one mistake, but two? That was beyond repair. Meanwhile, Jannero's supporters grew louder. One fan outside the courthouse held a sign that read, "Justice for Jannero." Another sobbed into cameras, saying he gave her everything and she took everything away. But the most haunting reaction came from within the family itself. According to one insider, a relative muttered under their breath as they left the courthouse, "This is only the beginning. There's more she hasn't told." The words spread like wildfire, sparking even more speculation. Was there another secret hidden in Malaysia's past? Another lie waiting to be unearthed? What had started as a single DNA test had now spiraled into a labyrinth of betrayal, lies, and unanswered questions. And the scariest part? The world still didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went. The courthouse was nearly empty when the last bombshell dropped. Most reporters had packed up, thinking the day's drama was finished. But those who stayed witnessed the revelation that would turn an already devastating scandal into a generational tragedy. Buried inside sealed testimony was a single document that changed everything. Not only had Malaysia lied about the father, not only had she accepted Jannero's financial support while hiding the truth, she had allegedly signed a confidential agreement years ago. A secret deal with the real father to keep his name hidden forever. The agreement, according to leaked notes, promised financial compensation in exchange for silence. That meant Malaysia hadn't just acted alone. She had allegedly conspired with someone else, someone powerful enough to protect his reputation at all costs. The revelation sent shockwaves through the courtroom. Jannero's lawyer demanded the name be unsealed, but the judge refused, citing privacy laws. Still, the damage was done. Whispers filled the room. The betrayal wasn't just personal anymore. It was systemic. Outside, the media frenzy hit a fever pitch. Theories about the mystery man spiraled out of control. Some believed it was an NBA veteran with too much to lose. Others pointed to a high-profile businessman who had quietly funded Malaysia's ventures over the years. One viral post even suggested the man was still married at the time of the affair, making the betrayal even darker. Meanwhile, Jannero sat stone-faced, his once proud legacy reduced to ashes. This wasn't just about a broken marriage or a lost child. This was about reputation, respect, and trust. Three things he had built his career on, now stripped away in a matter of weeks. For the public, the heartbreak was unbearable. Clips of Jannero's collapse played side by side with his proudest career highlights. His game-winning shots, his father-son moments on Instagram. The contrast was brutal. As one fan wrote, "From NBA star to DNA star, he deserved better than this." Malaysia, meanwhile, became a ghost. She canceled all appearances. Her social media went dark, and whispers emerged that she had fled the city to escape the relentless cameras. But no matter where she went, the shadow of the scandal followed. The child, the innocent caught in the middle, was left shattered. Friends leaked that he stopped attending school events, terrified of the stares and whispers. One heartbreaking report said he asked his grandmother, "Do I even know who I am anymore?" That single line, repeated across blogs and talk shows, broke hearts around the world. This wasn't just tabloid fodder anymore. It was generational trauma unfolding in real time, but the true final twist wasn't about the lies or even the DNA. It was about what would happen next. Legal experts predicted Jannero could sue for millions in damages, citing fraud, emotional distress, and financial exploitation. Some whispered he might even push for criminal charges. The possibility of a high-profile lawsuit loomed large, one that could drag every hidden name into the light. And then came the most chilling rumor of all. According to one unnamed source, the mystery father wasn't just anyone. He was allegedly someone so entrenched in the industry that exposing him could topple careers, ruin franchises, and ignite lawsuits far beyond this family drama. Fans began calling it the scandal that could end basketball wives. Because if the truth ever came out, It wouldn't just burn Malaysia and Jannero, it would scorch everyone connected to them. By the end of the week, hashtags like non-legacy in flames and who is the father dominated every platform. Talk shows dissected it. Podcasts monetized it. Even late-night comedians joked about it. But beneath the laughter was a truth too heavy to ignore. Jannero's legacy as a father was gone. Malaysia's reputation as a mother was destroyed. And the child's sense of identity had been shattered before the world's eyes. The story that began with a DNA test had ended with an empire of lies collapsing into rubble. And as one blogger chillingly wrote, this wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the funeral of a legacy,